This is the brand new Himiway A7 Pro full suspension commuter electric bike. In this review, we're going to talk about all the features. There's a ton of them on this electric bike. Then we'll get into some first-person riding footage. We'll see what this mid-drive motor is capable of. Finally, some third-person riding footage where I'll give you the key considerations and pros and cons if you're considering this electric bike. But first, let's take a closer look. So you probably caught some of the features, but trust me, there is a ton to talk about on this bike. When it showed up, I could not believe how they spec'd this bike. First, let's talk price. The Himiway A7 Pro is priced at $23.99, which undoubtedly puts it more towards a premium electric bike. It comes in 5 different colors. This is the light gray, which has a little bit of a green tint to it. It weighs a massive 77 pounds. That's due in part to some of the component choices, as well as it being a robust frame to hold up to 300 pounds. And if you do decide to pick up any electric bike we've featured on the channel, we would greatly appreciate your support. It costs you nothing. Simply use our links down in the description before you make your purchase. The standout feature of this electric bike is that it is a full suspension, but it's still a step-through, and that's where we're gonna start. If you are a DIYer and you decide to pick this electric bike up, you might want to consider one of these. This is an air shock pump, and that's because not only is the front an air suspension, but so is the rear. And of course, this helps you dial in the suspension perfectly to your weight. Your local bike shop can help you as well. Up front is a name brand SR Suntour X132 air suspension fork. The valve is under here. By unscrewing this, you also have a lockout, but not only that, you also have a rebound adjustment knob down here. And it even is using boost spacing, which makes this wheel even sturdier. And this fork offers 120 millimeters of travel. I'll push on it to give you an idea of what to expect. Here is the rear suspension. It's actually kind of crazy that they can make this a step through with the frame and still have a rear suspension. Now, this is not an SR Suntour rear shock. The branding on it says PAIshocks.com, but it is still fully adjustable because it is a air shock. That's where the air will go in. From the factory, it came pretty stiff, so I used the air shock to let out a little bit of air. Here's a look at how the rear suspension looks. And trust me, it certainly adds a lot of comfort to your ride, even if you're riding on mostly paved trails and encounter just a few bumps. Let's talk sizing. It is a little bit of a larger commuter step-through electric bike, and I'm gonna show off one of the other cool features, and that is the dropper seat post. Nice step-through frame, so I could hop on. Seat's in a low position, and if I lift this lever up, I can bring the seat to the proper height. And of course, I can get full leg extension. We'll throw up a video of my wife hopping on this electric bike as well. Here's a closer look at the dropper seat post. Lift the lever. You can imagine your weight's going to be on this. And then you can lower it down for when you stop, and then simply lift it up when you're ready to ride. Now, while the rear suspension offers a lot of comfort, you may want to consider a different saddle. It is nice and wide, though it doesn't offer a ton of cushion. Sella Royale branded. Moving back to the front, Himiway spared no expense with the brakes. They went with name brand Shimano Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, and those are paired with 180 millimeter rotors. Both the front wheel and the rear wheel is attached with a through axle for increased sturdiness. And it's also more precise, making sure you get those wheels on perfectly. And for tires, we have Chaoyang street tires. These are 27.5 by 2.4 inches wide. And the tires also have reflective sidewalls for increased visibility at night. Included are sturdy metal fenders, both front and in the rear. The cables disappear into the stem. We also have a stem mounted bushel front light. Turn that on with pedal assist up, holding that. Nice bright front light. And in the rear, you have this very fancy light integrated right into the rear rack. It does act as a brake light, and then if you turn the lights on and then press the brakes, it goes even brighter. In the cockpit, we have handlebars with a slight rise to them, but more importantly is the adjustable stem. That, of course, allows you to ride in a more upright riding position if you prefer. There's locking ergonomic rubber grips, and we have the Shimano hydraulic disc brake levers. And yes, they do have motor cutoffs. That's going to be the second cable right here. Moving on to the right side, an included bell. And a Shimano Alivio trigger shifter, which is a step up on the hierarchy compared to what we normally see. 9 speeds. And yes, there is a throttle on this mid-drive electric bike. You don't typically see throttles. It is on the right side, and it is a thumb throttle. Moving on to the display, we have 4 buttons on the left, and the screen is integrated right into the stem. Now, while it gets a little bit of glare, it is plenty bright, and I haven't had any issues seeing the speed, which is located here. We have a wattage bar right here. That's going to show you how much power you're using. We have trip, as well as time, current voltage, pedal assist, 0 all the way up to 5. Holding the pedal assist down button will get you into walk mode, and hitting the set button will change the trip mileage over to the odometer. And yes, there are some advanced settings. Hold down the set button. In the general settings, you can reset the trip, set the screen brightness, units, set a password. Going to the advanced settings, this is actually where you can change this from a Class 2 electric bike as it comes shipped, top speed of 20 miles per hour, whether you're pedaling or using the throttle, to a Class 3 electric bike, though the throttle will still kick off at 20 miles per hour. We're going to talk about all of that in the upcoming first-person riding footage. Now, the password is going to be 0. Hit set to confirm. 0510. And you can set the speed limit up to 45 kilometers an hour. And the throttle limit is set to 32, and you can't change that. So that is the Himiway integrated display. It comes with a total of 4 keys. I'll tell you why in a second. But first, the keys for the battery turn to the left and the battery releases. This battery is 48 volt, 14.4 amp hours, and there is an indicator light right here for current capacity. And the battery can be charged both off the bike with the port here, otherwise there's a rubber cover on the other side of the bike. And it does come with a 2 amp charger. To put the battery back in, locate the terminals, put that in first. No issues with clearance here. And snap into place and remove the keys. We have 4 bottle cage bosses on the down tube, and that's really nice because I could mount the best water bottle cage you can buy, available at shop.ebikeescape.com, high on the frame so it doesn't impact the accessibility that you get from a step-through. And what's great about this water bottle cage is it can hold large water bottles like this one, and that's made possible by the turn dial here. Always good to stay hydrated. The mid-drive motor is Himiway branded, but it is a Ananda M100, 500 watts of power. We'll put that to the test. Simple metal pedals, sturdy kickstand located out of the way of the pedals. You can see where some of the cables come out of the frame here. There's a look at all the linkages for the rear suspension. And if you're wondering what this is a speed sensor. That's how the bike knows how fast you're going. And as is common with most mid-drive electric bikes, it's using a torque sensor to amplify your power. This is the rear Shimano brakes. We have Himiway straps included on this rear rack with a max load of 25 kilograms. And if you notice this right here, it says MIK. That stands for MIK, which means this rack is compatible with any MIK accessories that you want to pick up. We sell some of our own, but you can find them elsewhere. And what's great about the MIK accessories, say you have a rear bag on here, it's very easy to remove and put back on, and it also is very secure. Now, I talked about the other set of keys. They include a Abus wheel lock name brand. Key's going to be on the right side. So if I turn the key just slightly, I can use this lever and lock that rear wheel and simply remove the key. So really nice that they included a name brand lock, and then when you're ready to ride, simply turn the key to the right that lever retracts and you're good to go. The Shimano Alivio shifter matches the derailleur, again a step up in the Shimano hierarchy, and in the rear a cassette 11 to 34 teeth, and in the front is a 44 tooth single-sided metal chainring. And you do have a chainstay protector here as well. You may have noticed this box here. This is the shift sensor, connects up to the Shimano Alivio rear derailleur. So every time you shift a gear, it's going to cut power to the motor. That helps prolong the longevity of the drivetrain because, of course, this is a mid-drive electric bike, which means all the power is going through the drivetrain compared to a hub motor, which is independent. I feel like we covered a lot because this bike just has so many features, but the proof is in how it performs. Let's get into some first-person riding footage. All right, let's get into the first-person riding footage on the A7 Pro. This should be a fun one. Now we do have a few things to talk about. Remember, this is a mid-drive electric bike, which means the power is going through the chain. It's going through all of the gears. Yes, it does have a throttle, but you'll want to be mindful of what gear you're in. Most manufacturers aren't going to recommend that you just hammer on the throttle in the highest gear. Of course, even in that highest gear, your acceleration is going to be slower. So it also does benefit you being in a lower gear. I'll demonstrate that here just so you can see how it works. So in first gear, if I just hit the throttle, I get instant acceleration, but I'm topping out at 8, 10, maybe 11 miles an hour, 9 miles an hour according to the GPS. And that's of course a limitation of the gearing. So our first test, I'll go up to 20 miles per hour. It does come shipped as a Class 2 electric bike. That means a top speed of 20 miles per hour, whether I am pedaling or using the throttle. I was able to override it though, so when we get to the pedaling portion, we'll see what the true performance of this motor is. I have the GPS speed on my phone here. We'll compare that to the display, which I assume is going to be very difficult to see on camera. In pedal assist level 0, you have no access to the throttle, but you have full access to the throttle, whether you're in pedal assist level 1 all the way up to 5. All right, here we go. I'm going to start in first gear, and then I'm going to hold the throttle and I'm going to shift. And you might even hear the motor cut off due to that shift sensor, which is important for the longevity of that drivetrain. All right, here we go. Throttle only. All right, we really quickly got to 10. There's third gear. So compared to a hub drive, it's just going to take you a little bit longer to get to that top speed of 20 miles per hour. I'm in fifth gear here. 17 it looks like, shift up again. All right, there's seventh gear, and I think we're going to hit that 20 mile per hour mark. There's 20 on the display. And I hit that on the GPS as well. And it looked like I needed to get up to about 6th, 7th gear. So something to be mindful of. And of course, when you're riding a mid-drive electric bike, you want to ride it like a normal non-electric bike, which means when you come to a stop at a stop sign like I have here, I should shift all the way down so then when I start, I can pedal easily. And then of course, it's not going to put undue stress on that drivetrain. Already felt the rear suspension quite comfortable. And of course, the front suspension being in an air fork is super nice as well. All right, now let's get to the pedaling test. I'm going to start off in pedal assist level 1 and just give it a little bit. Remember, this is a torque sensor, so it's measuring how much output I'm putting in myself. So what I like to do in these tests is just do a very leisurely cadence and then put in a little bit more power so you can get an idea of how this might feel. So in first gear, I can certainly hear a light whine of the motor going 6 miles an hour, but I do need to shift up. I'd prefer a slower cadence. There's third gear, fourth gear, and I hear the motor cutting off every time I shift. So I'd say pedal assist level 1, 10 miles an hour, fourth gear feels pretty nice, putting in very little effort. And I would maybe shift up to fifth or sixth gear here and then put in a little bit more power. Say you want to work those legs a little bit, already getting up to 18 miles an hour. The motor feels very responsive. as I would expect. Do a little off-roading here. And no problem with the full suspension. Love that. All right, pedal assist level 2. I'm going to shift all the way down again. All right, here we go. Felt a little bit more power there for sure. Second gear, third gear, fourth gear. Of course, you have the wattage bars as well on the display. 11 miles an hour. There's fifth gear. So 11, 12 miles an hour. And of course, a little bit more power. 16. 17. Looks like the display is reading slightly higher than the GPS there that they're matching at 18. So able to get to nearly 20 miles an hour, even in pedal assist level 2, putting in just a little bit more effort. Let's go into pedal assist level 3. We'll shift down here. There we go. Shift up. It feels like you're driving a manual car with all the cutting power of the motor. It's a different experience for sure. Very easily cruising at 14, 15 miles an hour. I shifted up to 6th gear here. And in pedal assist level 3, if I wanted to provide a little bit more power, the wattage bar is getting closer to the top. Let's shift up 7th. 20 miles an hour. Display's reading 23. There's 22. I'd say this is moderate effort. Let's go into pedal assist level 4 and see what we shift down to 5th gear. Nice and easy. I have to shift up in the 6th gear. 7th. So what I like about this is if you do want to travel at higher speeds, it's not like you have to put in a ton of effort if you don't want to. Of course you can by going in a lower pedal assist level. Cruising at 18, very easy in pedal assist level 4. Turn around here and give it a little bit more power. Should get over 20 again. I'm gonna shift up to 8th gear. Feels appropriately geared. And this bike, I feel like fits me perfectly at 6 feet tall. Definitely a little bit of a bigger bike. 24 miles an hour. Pedal assist level 4. All right, let's go up to pedal assist level 5. Curious to feel how much the acceleration is too right off the bat. Let's see. Yeah, instant from the motor. Shift up quick. All right, 6th gear. 7th. So pedal assist level 5. Shifting up to 8th gear. And 20 miles an hour, 21 without breaking a sweat. And let's see what the top speed is. Shift up to 9th. Probably could have stayed in 8th, but 28 miles an hour, 27 according to the GPS. All right. And the display was reading just higher, 28. We have a little off-road trail here. Not anything crazy, but certainly, there we go. Going to appreciate the full suspension on something like this, where you'll just encounter some little bumps, maybe some tree roots. And certainly this bike is more capable with the rear suspension, or more comfortable, really. Some people might want to upgrade the seat a little bit. Now, these aren't really knobby tires, so you want to be mindful of that you might slip around a little bit easier, but feels really good on these trails. And anyone who tries either an electric bike with a suspension seat post or a rear suspension, even on a full suspension mountain bike, it's something that once you experience it, you don't really want to go back to a hardtail with just front suspension only. And the beauty of this is you have a nice high quality SR Suntour fork up front. All right, with that, let's get into my concluding thoughts on the Himiway A7 Pro. I have a pretty good idea of what people want in an e-bike thanks to the YouTube comment section. They want the most powerful motor, make it a mid-drive, giant battery, front and rear suspension, step-thru, throttles, the list goes on. And the Himiway A7 kind of delivers on most of those, and throws in some nice extras as well. Now the question in the back of my head has always been to those YouTube commenters, yeah, but are you willing to pay for it? And even more, an e-bike with full suspension is great, but if the suspension is terrible, what good is it? That's kind of where I feel like this e-bike sits. It aims to have all the features you could want, just better quality components than you typically see, and with a price to match at $23.99. It's a good step up from other commuter e-bikes. Heck, Himiway's other commuter, the A5, also known as the Rambler, starts at just $13.99. Still, the $23.99 price point for the A7 feels warranted here. SR Suntour's X1 Air Fork is the star of the show, letting you dial in the suspension to your weight, followed by the fact that it's a step-thru with a rear suspension, which is rare, and it's still an air suspension, which helps cushion any bumps you might encounter. The Alivio drivetrain performs well, and the Shimano hydraulic brakes to match were a bit of a surprise. Maybe this is the reality of the e-bike industry, where these components just aren't as hard to get or as expensive, but the A7 is really outfitted well. The mid-drive motor felt responsive and more powerful compared to some of the 250 watt mid-drive motors you often see. The 48 volt system of course helps. The battery is just slightly above average at 15 amp hours, and the overall look is clean from the front to the back, where you'll find the integrated lights built right into the rack. We've seen manual dropper seat posts like this before. On a step-thru it feels less of a need. I'm curious to hear what the consensus is from the audience. Is this something you would use if it came on your e-bike? It sometimes can be a bit awkward to reach down to use, though it undoubtedly can help once you get used to it. There are a few considerations here with the A7. First, a small one, the seat. I imagine most won't find it very comfortable, and since you're buying a full suspension e-bike, you're probably desiring a plush ride. Next, this e-bike is made for taller riders. I felt very comfortable at 6 feet tall, and here's my wife, a confident rider who is 5'5". And then to go along with the robust frame and all of that suspension, it's just heavy, which might not be a huge deal to some, but you'll want to make sure you can handle it. Finally, and this is the case on any mid-drive e-bike, the throttle experience just isn't as smooth compared to a hub drive, unless you don't change gears, but of course your limitation on top speed is the gear that you're currently in. Himiway isn't new to e-bikes, and they have a decent amount of shops around the US, so you can check one out for yourself, though if you do buy online, we appreciate your support by using our link down in the description. You might even find a discount down there as well. If you already own a Himiway e-bike, we'd love to hear what your experience has been, and what do you think of the new Himiway e-bikes? It seems with their latest launches of these C-Series e-bikes, they are setting themselves apart, and with the A7, they're offering some decent upgrades from budget, sub-$2,000 commuter e-bikes. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.